Welcome to Trailblazing Talks. I'm Dini Petty. Linwood Barclay is a New York Times best-selling author and a former Toronto Star journalist whose thrillers have sold millions, been adapted for the screen, with Stephen King among his most devoted fans. Um, and your books have been translated into I don't know how many languages. And one of my best parts is at the beginning when you put your books out, no Canadian publisher would help you out.
Well, there's some truth to that. When I started writing, when I wrote my first crime novel, which was a book called Bad Move, um, like we couldn't get a Canadian publisher for it, but Bantam Books in New York, Bantam
Yep.
part of Random House, was they took it on, and I did 4 books with them, and those none of those 4 books did particularly well. And then the fifth book, which was a book called No Time for Goodbye, that became a massive bestseller in Germany. It was the best-selling novel of the year in 2008 in the UK. So it just had sold hundreds of thousands of copies. And even after that, it took 2 more books before I had an official Canadian publisher. I
Wow.
had there was a publishers in Canada who distributed me, but I didn't have a publisher. But I guess at that point they sort of thought, gee, maybe we should let's go.
So I've 22 books so far?
I
Oh,
think
you lost.
actually, I think actually, I'll swing back here. I
And just,
believe, I believe this is the book that came out this year, which is Whistle. I
yeah,
think this is I think I said 25th novel.
wow.
There's a couple other books that don't quite count, but of the novels, that's 25.
Uh, in terms of writing books, aren't you what the word is, prolific? 25 books?
Yeah, it's well, when those of us who write in the sort of crime or thriller genre, it's not obligatory necessarily, but there's kind of an expectation that there'll be a book a year.
Oh,
Every year, you're waiting for the new Michael Connelly or the new Shirley Pena or
ah,
the new lead child, Jack Reacher. And if you're writing, literary fiction, you have there's this aura about you that they're so hard to do that you have to take several years for each one. But when you do thrillers, it is kind of a treadmill, but there is a kind of hope or expectation that there'll be one every year.
have you fulfilled that of one every year? Is that what you're at?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, the first novel was 2024. So that's 21 years ago. So there were a
Uh,
couple of years where there were two. And then there was one year that we missed. And so, but it's all worked out to be just slightly more than one a year.
Do you have any idea, literally? I mean, we know it's 25 books. Can you tell me how many millions of books you've sold? Do you actually know that count?
I don't know it exactly, and I don't know. Sometimes we don't know what the ebook numbers are,
Ah,
but I I think it's in the range of 8.5 million, somewhere in there.
damn.
Um, which is, I'll take that. Especially when they say that a bestseller in Canada
Yeah.
is deemed to be 5 or 10,000 copies, and so we've over those couple of decades we've managed to beat that.
And a man named Ross McDonald, who you are a great admirer of, wrote in his copy or yours, "You will, I hope, someday outright me." Have you?
That's a really good question. I have all of his books on the shelf here. I think that I'm about where he was. I think he did about 24, 25 novels, but I could stand to be corrected on that. But starting in my mid-teens, he wrote the Lou Archer series of detective novels, and he was, I think, at the time considered kind of heir to the throne that had been occupied by Dashiell Hammett and then Raymond Chandler. And then there was Ross McDonald. And in the late 60s, early and through the 70s, he was very highly revered, considered one of the top crime writers, that there was. And I just I loved his work, and I wrote to him, care of his publisher, back when I was about 18 or 19, something there down there. And on the pretext was that I was writing a thesis at Trent University. I was as the private eye as an iconic figure in literature, but I really wanted to focus on his works. And so I wrote to him saying, "Are there things that have been written about you that you could direct me to for this thesis?" And he wrote back and he said, "There's a Newsweek cover story, and there was this and there was that." He lived in California, but he had he kind of had his formative years in Ontario,
At that
and
point,
then
at that point,
yeah,
I'm going to interrupt you to do that thing. You know that thing? It's time for a commercial break thing.